The stars hung silent in the darkness of space as the small alien scout ship crossed the invisible line. There were no guards here, no weapons pointed at them, no voices shouting warnings, just a small metal buoy floating in the void, blinking a soft red light. The three-member crew of the Vortan hegemony barely glanced at it. Inside the scout ship, Commander Vex studied the readings on his screen. Below them, a green and blue planet rotated slowly. Farms stretched across the land. Small cities dotted the surface. He could see ships moving between the planet and a simple space station, carrying goods and people. Nothing more. This is what they call a colony world, Vex said to his crew. The humans have dozens of these planets. Look at how peaceful they are. No military bases, no defense platforms, just farmers and merchants. His second officer, Cora, frowned at her own display. Commander, we crossed their territorial marker 3 minutes ago. The buoy transmitted a message. Should I translate it? If you wish, Vex replied, not looking up from his work. He was busy counting the ships, measuring the station's size, noting the locations of possible targets. Cora activated the translation program. The message played in their language. Warning, you have entered human-claimed territory. This is a protected zone. Please identify yourself or leave immediately. Failure to comply will be considered a hostile act. Vex laughed. A hostile act? Look at them, Cora. They have nothing to threaten us with. Record everything you see. The Overlord will want detailed reports before we begin the invasion. For 3 days, the Vortan scout ship moved through human space. They visited 5 colony worlds. They saw the same thing everywhere. Peaceful settlements, light defenses, people going about their daily lives. The humans knew the Vortans were there. Sometimes human ships would approach and try to communicate, but the scouts never answered. They were gathering intelligence, not making friends. When they returned to Vortan space, Cora compiled her report. As she worked, something bothered her. The humans had not tried to chase them away. They had not fired weapons or sent warships. They had simply watched and recorded. It seemed strange for a species that claimed to defend its territory. 3 weeks later, a message arrived at the Vortan hegemony's central command. It came through official diplomatic channels marked as urgent. Overlord Vex, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Military Operations, opened it in the war room with his senior officers present. A human woman appeared on the screen. She looked to be in her middle years with dark hair pulled back from her face. Her expression was serious but not angry. She wore a simple uniform with symbols that indicated she was a government official. My name is Dr. Hana, the woman said in perfect Vortan language. I serve as humanity's chief xenopsychologist and first contact specialist. I'm sending this message because your scout ships have entered our territory multiple times without permission. We know you are considering military action against us. Before you make that decision, we want you to understand something important. She paused, then continued. We do not want war with your people. We have seen enough war to last 1,000 lifetimes. But if you force us to fight, you need to know what you are facing. This is not a threat. This is a warning given in good faith so you can make an informed choice. The screen changed. It showed images from Earth's history. Armies clashing with swords and spears. Soldiers with rifles fighting in trenches. Bombs falling on cities. Mushroom clouds rising into the sky. The numbers appeared beside each image. Millions dead in this war. Millions more in that one. Dr. Hana's voice continued over the images. Humans evolved on a dangerous world. We spent 200,000 years learning how to kill efficiently. We fought each other for resources, for territory, for ideas. We perfected the art of organized violence. We created weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We nearly made ourselves extinct several times. More images appeared. These showed battles in space. Human soldiers in advanced armor. Weapons firing in the darkness between stars. When we finally left Earth and found that we were not alone in the universe, we made a choice. We decided to be better than our history. We chose peace over conquest. But choosing peace does not mean we forgot how to fight. It means we understand the cost of fighting, and we would rather avoid it. Dr. Hana's face returned to the screen. I am sending you detailed files about human military history and capabilities. Study them carefully. Learn about what we call asymmetric warfare, psychological operations, and guerrilla tactics. Understand that every human colony you see has defensive systems you cannot detect. Every civilian ship can become a weapon. Every farmer is trained in combat. She leaned forward slightly. We are showing you this because we respect you. We do not want to kill your soldiers. We do not want to destroy your ships. We want you to look at the evidence and make a wise decision. Stay in your territory. Let us stay in ours. Trade with us if you wish, but do not invade our space. The message ended with final words that would haunt some of the Vortan officers for the rest of their short lives. Our restraint is not weakness. It is a choice. We are giving you the chance to make a different choice. Please, for the sake of your people, choose wisely. The screen went dark. Overlord Vex sat back in his chair, silent for a moment. Around the table, his officers shifted uncomfortably. High Strategist Cora spoke first. Overlord, I recommend we study these files carefully. No species has ever given us this kind of warning before. Usually, primitive species just make empty threats. But the humans are being specific. They are telling us exactly what they will do. This suggests confidence, not fear. Vex waved his hand dismissively. It is psychological warfare, Cora. They are trying to scare us because they know they cannot defeat us in real combat. Look at their colonies. We have seen them with our own eyes. Minimal defenses. Slow ships. Old technology. They are bluffing. But Overlord, another officer interjected. Their warning included detailed tactical information. They explained their combat doctrines. Why would they do that if it was just a bluff? To make it seem more believable, Vex replied. They created an elaborate story about their violent history to intimidate us. But we are the Vortan hegemony. We have conquered 17 species. We have the most powerful fleet in this sector. What can these humans do against us? Cora opened her datapad and began reading through the human files. She saw casualty numbers from Earth's wars. 30 million dead here, 60 million there, 100 million in a single conflict. The numbers were staggering. She looked at the tactical descriptions, ambush techniques, supply line disruption, psychological operations designed to break enemy morale. Overlord, she said quietly, I think we should take this seriously. These humans have experience we do not. They have fought wars we cannot imagine. Perhaps we should try diplomacy instead. Vex stood up, his decision made. No. We will proceed with the invasion as planned. Assemble the fleet. We strike in 30 days. The humans will learn that warnings mean nothing when you lack the strength to back them up. The meeting ended. Officers filed out to prepare their forces. Only Cora remained, staring at the human data on her screen. She read about something humans called the Vietnam War, where a technologically superior force was defeated by determined guerrilla fighters. She read about the Afghan wars, where empires went to die in the mountains. A cold feeling settled in her chest. The humans were not threatening them. They were teaching them. They were showing the Vortans exactly what would happen, hoping that knowledge would prevent bloodshed. But Vex would not listen. Pride and confidence blinded him to the danger. 30 days later, 300 Vortan warships gathered at the edge of human space. Soldiers boarded transport ships. Commanders reviewed their attack plans. Everyone expected a quick victory. They would overwhelm the human colonies, force a surrender, and add another conquest to the hegemony's proud history. Far away on Earth, Admiral Dae Hyun received word that the Vortan fleet was moving. He had expected this. The humans had tracked every Vortan ship, recorded every communication, analyzed every plan. They knew exactly when and where the attack would come. He called his senior officers together. Captain Taman arrived from his Special Operations Unit. Dr. Hana joined by video link from the diplomatic service. They all looked tired. No one wanted this war. They ignored the warning. Daehyun said simply, Now we do what we must. Activate all defensive protocols. Alert the colonies. Prepare the fleet. He paused, his old eyes sad. They had their chance. Now we show them why we gave that warning. The Vortan fleet entered hyperspace, jumping toward the human colony of New Busan. They did not know that small human drones had been following them for weeks. They did not know that humanity had already positioned forces exactly where they would be most effective. They did not know that they were flying into a trap designed by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. The warning had been given. The choice had been made. Now there would be blood, and the Vortans would learn that some lessons can only be taught through pain. The Vortan fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 300 warships hung in the darkness above New Busan, their weapons charging, their sensors scanning. Fleet Commander Wrath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet below with satisfaction. This would be an easy conquest. Status report, Wrath commanded. His tactical officer studied her displays. Sir, we detect minimal resistance. I count only 12 civilian transport ships in orbit. No military vessels. The space station appears to be evacuating. Ground scans show the cities are emptying as well. Wrath smiled. They are running. Just as we predicted. The humans talk bravely but flee when faced with real power. Prepare the landing forces. We will secure the primary city within hours. The transport ships began their descent. Thousands of Vortan soldiers sat in the troop bays checking their weapons and armor. They had trained for months for this moment. Their officers had told them the humans would surrender quickly once they saw the size of the invasion force. This would be a simple occupation. The first transports touched down on the outskirts of the main city. The rear ramps dropped open and soldiers poured out, weapons ready. They spread out in standard formation, expecting to meet local security forces. Instead, they found empty streets. Buildings stood silent. Not a single human in sight. This is too easy, one squad leader muttered to his troops. Stay alert. Something feels wrong. He was right to be worried. The moment the last transport landed, everything changed. The civilian ships that had been fleeing suddenly turned. Their hulls split open, revealing hidden weapons. These were not merchant vessels. They were warships disguised as transports, and now they opened fire on the Vortan fleet above. At the same moment, the ground erupted. What the Vortans thought were simple buildings had concealed automated defense systems. Machine guns rose from beneath the streets. Missiles launched from hidden silos. And from every window, every doorway, every shadow, humans began firing. The Vortan soldiers had never experienced anything like it. Their training prepared them for conventional battle, for two armies facing each other across open ground. But the humans did not fight that way. They struck from hiding and vanished. They fired from buildings and then disappeared before the Vortans could return fire. Every corner could be a death trap. Every street could be an ambush. We are under attack. The squad leader shouted into his radio. Enemy contacts everywhere. We need support. But the radio filled with screams and static. Other squads were being hit just as hard. The entire landing force was under assault from an enemy they could barely see. Above the planet, Fleet Commander Wrath watched his tactical display with growing horror. His ships were being torn apart. The human vessels fought with a savagery that shocked him. They did not maneuver gracefully. They did not try to disable enemy ships. They rammed damaged vessels, sent boarding parties that killed crews with brutal efficiency, and broadcast captured intelligence on open channels so all of humanity could see Vortan plans. One of those boarding parties was led by Captain Tae-min. He and his team cut through the hull of a Vortan cruiser and moved through the corridors like ghosts. They killed quietly and quickly. The Vortan crew never knew what hit them until it was too late. Within 20 minutes, Tae-min had secured the ship's bridge and accessed its computer systems. This is Captain Tae-min to all human forces, he broadcast. I have the Vortan fleet database. Uploading now. All their ship positions, supply routes, command codes, everything. Distribute to all units. The information spread through the human network in seconds. Every commander, every ship captain, every soldier suddenly knew exactly where the enemy was and what they were planning. The Vortans had just lost their most important advantage, surprise and secrecy. On the ground, the fighting continued. The Vortan soldiers tried to advance, but humans had spent centuries perfecting urban warfare. Every building had firing positions. Every street had been planned as a killing zone. The Vortans fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing when you could not find your enemy. Then the psychological warfare began. The humans hacked into Vortan communications. Suddenly, Vortan soldiers heard screams in their helmets. Not human screams, but the voices of their own comrades crying for help, begging for mercy, dying in agony. The recordings played over and over. They could not turn them off. Between the screams, a calm voice spoke in the Vortan language. You were warned. Your leaders sent you here to die. The humans told you what would happen. They showed you their history. But your commanders thought they were lying. Now you pay the price for their pride. Some Vortan soldiers broke. They threw down their weapons and surrendered. The humans, to everyone's surprise, accepted their surrender. They treated prisoners well, gave them food and medical care, but they made sure every other Vortan soldier knew about it. The message was clear. Fighting humans meant death, but surrendering meant safety. Fleet Commander Wrath tried desperately to turn the battle around. He ordered orbital bombardment of the city. If he could not take it, he would destroy it. His ships turned their heavy weapons toward the planet and began charging. Admiral Dae-hyun had expected this move. Hidden beneath the oceans of New Busan were submarine launch platforms, a strategy humans had used on Earth centuries ago. The moment Vortan ships began charging their bombardment weapons, hundreds of missiles erupted from the water and screamed toward space. At the same time, human warships that had been waiting in the asteroid belt suddenly jumped into the battle. They had been there for days, silent and hidden, waiting for the perfect moment. Now they struck with overwhelming force, not at the Vortan fleet's strength but at its weak points. Supply ships exploded. Command vessels found themselves surrounded. Communication arrays were destroyed. Within 6 hours, the battle was over. The Vortan fleet was destroyed or scattered. 80% of their forces were dead or captured. The survivors fled in panic, their discipline shattered, their confidence broken. They had come expecting an easy victory and instead found a nightmare. Wrath himself barely escaped. His flagship, crippled and burning, managed to limp into hyperspace. As he sat in his command chair surrounded by wounded officers and failing systems, he recorded a message to Overlord Vex. Overlord, we were wrong about everything. The humans did not run. They baited us into a trap. They fight like nothing we have ever encountered. They hide in shadows. They strike from nowhere. They turn our own systems against us. Every tactic we know they have already countered. Every strategy we try they have anticipated. Wrath's hands shook as he continued. It is like they can read our minds. Like they have fought this battle 1,000 times before. Overlord, I am requesting permission to withdraw from human space. These are not prey. They are predators and we just walked into their hunting ground. Back on New Busan, the fighting stopped. Human forces emerged from their hiding places. They secured the area, gathered the prisoners, and began cleaning up the battlefield. There was no celebration. The soldiers looked tired and sad. They had won, but victory felt hollow when it meant so much death. Dr. Hana arrived on the planet the next day. She walked through the streets with Admiral Dae-hyun, looking at the damage. Buildings were scarred with weapon impacts. Streets were torn up from explosions, but the casualties were surprisingly low on the human side. The defenders had known exactly what they were doing. We warned them, Hana said quietly. We gave them every chance to turn back. Why did they not listen? Dae-hyun watched his soldiers helping Vortan prisoners, because they thought we were weak. They saw our peaceful colonies and thought that made us easy targets. They did not understand that we choose peace because we know the cost of war. They mistook wisdom for cowardice. High strategist Korra, who had been captured during the battle, was brought to meet them. She looked defeated and tired. Dae-hyun offered her a chair and water. She drank gratefully. I read your warning, Korra said. I tried to tell them. I showed them your history. I explained that you were being honest about your capabilities. But they would not listen. Vex believed that any species offering peace must be weak. Hana sat down across from her. What will Overlord Vex do now? Korra laughed bitterly. He will send more ships. He will not accept defeat. His pride will not allow it. He will tell himself that Wrath failed because of incompetence, not because you are genuinely dangerous. He will escalate. Then more will die, Dae-hyun said. On both sides. All because he refuses to learn. That is who he is, Korra replied. Vex has conquered 17 species. Each time, his enemies surrendered quickly when they saw his fleet. He does not know how to face an enemy that refuses to quit. He does not understand that you have been fighting and dying for centuries. To him, war is about showing strength. To you, war is about survival. She looked directly at Dae-hyun. You will destroy us, will you not? You will hunt down every ship, defeat every fleet until the hegemony is broken. That is what your warning meant. You were telling us that if we started this war, you would finish it. The old admiral nodded slowly. We do not want to. We hoped you would turn back. But you are right. We cannot let this continue. If we show mercy now, other species will think they can attack us too. Overlord Vex stared at the holographic display showing what remained of his invasion fleet. Less than 60 ships had returned from New Busan, 60 out of 300, the greatest military disaster in hegemony history, but he could not accept it. He would not accept it. Fleet Commander Wrath failed because he was unprepared, Vex announced to his war council. He underestimated the enemy and paid the price. We will not make the same mistake. Assemble another fleet, twice the size, better equipped, better trained. We will crush these humans. High Strategist Cora was not at the meeting. She was a prisoner of the humans now. The officer who replaced her, a young commander named Talk, hesitated before speaking. Overlord, our intelligence suggests the humans have studied our tactics. They know how we fight. Perhaps we should consider negotiation instead. Vex slammed his fist on the table. Negotiation? We are the Vortan hegemony. We do not negotiate with primitives. Send orders to all sectors. I want every available ship, every soldier, every resource dedicated to defeating humanity. This war ends only when they surrender. What Vex did not know was that humans were listening to every word. They had planted listening devices throughout Vortan space during Captain Tayman's reconnaissance missions. They knew about the new fleet before it even began assembling, and they had plans for it. Dr. Hana sat in her office on Earth, reviewing the psychological profiles of Vortan leadership. She had spent her career studying alien minds, understanding how different species thought and felt. Now she was using that knowledge to wage war in the most effective way possible, by breaking the enemy's will to fight. We need to make them doubt everything, she told her team. Not just their ability to win, but their leaders, their strategy, their purpose. We need to turn this invasion into a nightmare they cannot wake up from. The campaign began small. Human intelligence operatives hacked into Vortan communications and planted false messages. Supply orders were changed. Ships were sent to wrong locations. Reinforcements arrived late or not at all. At first, the Vortans thought it was simple mistakes. Then they began to wonder if someone was sabotaging them from inside. Paranoia spread like disease through the Vortan military. Officers began suspecting their subordinates. Subordinates questioned their officers. Everyone wondered if there were human spies among them. And the more they investigated, the more suspicious they became of each other. Meanwhile, Captain Tayman led his special operations teams deeper into Vortan territory. They did not attack everything they found. Sometimes they destroyed supply depots. Other times they left them untouched, making Vortan security forces wonder why. They sabotaged some ships but not others, creating patterns that made no sense. The randomness was deliberate. It kept the Vortans off balance. One night, Tayman's team infiltrated a major command center. They could have destroyed it completely. Instead, they planted evidence that made it look like one of the Vortan commanders was secretly working for the humans. The evidence was good enough to seem real, but obvious enough to be found. When Vortan investigators discovered it, they arrested the commander and began a massive investigation. The commander was innocent, but proving it was impossible. The Vortan military spent weeks hunting for traitors who did not exist while humans picked apart their supply lines and defensive positions. It was brilliant and cruel, and it worked perfectly. Dr. Hana's psychological operations reached every corner of Vortan space. Human broadcasts flooded their communications. Some messages were threats, others were offers of peace. Some were just recordings of previous battles, showing Vortan soldiers dying while their officers made tactical mistakes. The variety kept the Vortans confused about what was real and what was propaganda. One particular broadcast had devastating effects. It showed footage from New Busan with commentary from captured Vortan officers explaining how badly they had underestimated humans. High Strategist Cora appeared in the video, calm and composed, describing exactly how the humans had outmaneuvered them. "We were warned," Cora said into the camera. "Dr. Hana told us everything. She showed us human history. She explained their tactics, but Overlord Vex would not listen. He thought they were weak because they offered peace. Now thousands of our soldiers are dead because of his pride. If you are watching this, please, tell your families that we died for nothing." The broadcast spread through Vortan military channels despite efforts to block it. Soldiers began questioning why they were fighting. Families on the homeworld demanded answers. Political opponents of Vex used the disaster to challenge his leadership. The hegemony began tearing itself apart from the inside. Vex responded with increasing brutality. He ordered the execution of officers who suggested retreat. He threatened entire units with punishment if they did not advance. He launched desperate attacks against human positions, throwing soldiers at defensive lines that chewed them apart. Each defeat made him more desperate, and his desperation led to worse decisions. Admiral Daehyun watched the spiral with sad eyes. He had seen this before in Earth's history. A leader so convinced of his own rightness that he destroyed his own people trying to prove it. The Vortans were not losing to superior human technology. They were losing to their own fear and doubt. "We are breaking them," one of Daehyun's officers reported. "Vortan morale is collapsing. Their supply system is in chaos. Their command structure is paralyzed by paranoia. We could probably end this with one major offensive." Daehyun shook his head. "Not yet. Let them exhaust themselves. Every ship they send against us is one less defending their home territory. Every soldier they lose here weakens them there. When we finally strike their heartland, they will have nothing left to stop us." The turning point came at Vortan Station Gamma, a major supply base deep in hegemony territory. Admiral Daehyun brought a fleet not to destroy it, but to surround it. Human ships formed a blockade, cutting off all supplies and communications. Then they waited. Inside the station, 10,000 Vortan soldiers and workers watched their supplies dwindle. Rescue fleets tried to break through but were turned back. Months passed. Food ran low. Medical supplies ran out. People began getting sick. And every day human broadcasts offered the same message: surrender and live, or die slowly when the supplies run out. The station commander, a hardened veteran named Lix, refused to surrender. He rationed the remaining food. He maintained discipline. He told his people that relief would come. But deep down, he knew the truth. The hegemony had abandoned them. There would be no rescue. 3 months into the siege, the younger officers approached Lix. They did not want to mutiny, but they did not want to die either. Their families were on the station. Their children were hungry. The humans had promised fair treatment for prisoners. Why not surrender? Lix looked at his officers, seeing the desperation in their eyes. He thought about loyalty and duty and honor. Then he thought about the children crying from hunger in the station's residential sections. He thought about the sick people in the medical bay. And he made his choice. "Contact the humans," he said quietly. "Tell them we surrender." The human fleet accepted the surrender immediately. They brought food and medical supplies. They treated the Vortan prisoners with respect and care. Admiral Daehyun himself came aboard the station to meet Commander Lix. "You made the right choice," Daehyun told him. "Your people will be safe. We will feed them, care for them, and when this war ends, they can go home." Lix studied the old human admiral. "Why are you being kind to us? We invaded your territory. We killed your people." "Because you are not our enemy," Daehyun replied. "Your leaders are. You are just soldiers following orders. We remember what that is like. We have been in your position before, following leaders into wars we did not understand, so we treat you the way we wished someone had treated us." The fall of Station Gamma broke something in the Vortan military. If their own commanders were surrendering, what hope did anyone else have? Desertion rates skyrocketed. Entire units refused to fight. The hegemony's grand invasion force was falling apart not from human weapons, but from loss of faith in their cause. Overlord Vex watched his empire crumble. In his desperation, he made a terrible decision. He ordered weapons of mass destruction deployed against human colonies. If he could not win through conventional warfare, he would win through terror. He would show humanity that the Vortan hegemony still had power, but humans had been waiting for this move. They had predicted it months ago and prepared countermeasures. The moment Vortan ships launched their devastating weapons, human interceptors destroyed them. Not one reached its target, and then humanity showed the galaxy what it meant to push them too far. Admiral Daehyun received permission from Earth Command for what came next. It was time to take the war to the Vortan homeworld itself. It was time to show them that warnings once ignored are followed by consequences. The message went out to all human forces. Prepare for final offensive. The Vortans had made their choice. Now they would live with the results. The human fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system. 500 warships, the largest force humanity had ever gathered. Soldiers from every colony stood ready. The time for defense was over. Now humanity would take the war to those who started it. Admiral Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the stars. He was old now, tired from months of warfare, but his mind was sharp and his purpose clear. The Vortans needed to learn a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Dr. Hana contacted him from Earth. "Admiral, the Vortan government has sent another message. They want to negotiate now. They are offering to withdraw completely from our space." "Too late," Dae-hyun replied. "We warned them before they invaded. We gave them every opportunity to turn back. They chose war. Now they will see it through to the end. But Admiral, thousands more will die, on both sides." "I know," Dae-hyun said quietly, "and I will carry that weight for the rest of my life. But if we stop now, other species will think they can attack us and then negotiate when they start losing. We have to finish this. For the sake of future peace, we need to show the cost of ignoring our warnings." The fleet jumped into hyperspace. Captain Taemin and his special operations teams had already infiltrated Vortan space weeks earlier. They had mapped every defense, identified every weak point, and planted listening devices in critical locations. The humans knew exactly what they would face. What the Vortans did not know was that humanity had learned from their own history. Centuries ago, Earth nations had fought total wars that devastated entire continents. They had learned terrible lessons about industrial warfare, strategic bombing, and the breaking of enemy will. Now they would apply those lessons in space. The human fleet emerged in the outer reaches of Vortan space. They did not head straight for the homeworld. Instead, they began a methodical campaign of destruction aimed at military targets. Shipyards were destroyed. Supply depots were blown apart. Communication relays went dark. The humans moved from system to system, dismantling the Vortan military infrastructure piece by piece. Overlord Vex tried to mount a defense, but his forces were scattered and demoralized. Ships that should have been defending key positions were sitting in dock with mechanical problems caused by sabotage. Officers who should have been commanding troops were under investigation for suspected treason. The paranoia and chaos that humans had planted months ago now bore bitter fruit. The Vortan government sent desperate messages to other alien species, begging for help. But the humans had prepared for this too. They released all the recordings and data from the war, the original warning that had been ignored, the unprovoked invasion, the atrocities Vex had ordered. The galaxy watched and decided the Vortans had brought this disaster on themselves. 3 weeks into the offensive, the human fleet reached the approaches to the Vortan homeworld. Vex had gathered what remained of his forces here, 150 ships, the last defense of his species. He recorded a message to all Vortan citizens. "We face the final battle," Vex announced. "The humans come to destroy us, but we will not surrender. We will fight to the last ship, the last soldier, the last breath. We are the Vortan hegemony. We bow to no one." But the soldiers and civilians listening to his speech felt no inspiration. They felt only fear and anger. Fear of the humans who had destroyed their military, anger at Vex for leading them into this disaster. Some military units quietly sent messages to the human fleet, asking about surrender terms. Admiral Dae-hyun broadcast his own message to the Vortan homeworld. His image appeared on every screen, his voice in every speaker. He looked tired and sad, like a teacher forced to punish a student who would not learn. "People of the Vortan hegemony," he began, "you were warned. Your leaders received detailed information about human history and capabilities. We showed them what would happen if they invaded our space. We gave them every chance to choose peace, but they chose pride over wisdom. Now your fleets are destroyed. Your military is broken. Your economy is collapsing. And it is all because Overlord Vex refused to believe that a species offering peace could also wage war. This did not have to happen. Every soldier who died, every ship that burned, every family that mourns, it all could have been avoided if your leaders had listened." Dae-hyun paused, letting his words sink in. "We do not want to destroy your homeworld. We do not want to kill civilians. We came here to end this war, not to commit genocide. So I am making this offer one time only. Surrender now. Remove Overlord Vex from power. Agree to peace terms, or we will do what we must to ensure you never threaten anyone again. You have 6 hours to decide." The broadcast ended. On the Vortan homeworld, chaos erupted. Civilians filled the streets, demanding that their government accept the human terms. Military officers confronted their superiors, asking why they should die for Vex's pride. The government itself fractured as officials argued about what to do. Vex, isolated in his command center, refused all suggestions of surrender. He ordered his fleet to attack the humans immediately, but when he gave the command, nothing happened. His officers simply looked at him with cold eyes. "No," said the fleet commander. "We will not die for your mistakes. Arrest him." Guards moved forward and took Vex into custody. He struggled and screamed threats, but no one listened anymore. His own people had turned against him. Within an hour, a new provisional government contacted Admiral Dae-Hyun and accepted the surrender terms. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a whimper. The Vortan fleet powered down its weapons. Human forces moved in to take control of key installations. There was no resistance. The Vortans were simply too tired, too broken, too relieved that the nightmare was finally over. Admiral Dae-Hyun met with the new Vortan government in person. They brought Vex with them in chains. The former overlord looked small and defeated now, all his arrogance gone. Dae-Hyun studied him for a long moment. "Do you understand now?" Dae-Hyun asked. "Do you see why we gave you that warning?" Vex looked up at him with haunted eyes. "Why? If you were this powerful, you could have destroyed us with a surprise attack. Why warn us at all?" "Because we have been where you are," Dae-Hyun replied. "We have been the aggressors who thought victory was certain. We have made the same mistakes you made, and we learned through terrible cost that the universe does not care about pride or glory. It only cares about what works. We warned you because we wanted you to choose differently than we did. We gave you our history because we hoped you would learn from our mistakes instead of making your own. But you looked at our honesty and saw weakness. You looked at our reluctance to fight and assumed we could not." Dae-Hyun leaned forward. "The warning was not a threat, Vex, it was a mercy. And you rejected it. Now your species will spend generations recovering from your mistake. Your people will remember this war as the time their leaders chose pride over wisdom. And maybe, just maybe, that memory will make them wiser than you were." Vex said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had gambled everything and lost. His species had paid the price for his arrogance. The peace treaty was harsh but not cruel. The Vortans would dismantle most of their military. They would pay reparations to human colonies. They would study human history and teach it in their schools. But they would survive. Their species would continue. They had lost the war but not their future. Captain Taemin returned to Earth after the surrender. He looked older than his years, worn down by months of violence. He had done terrible things in this war, things that would haunt him forever. When asked if he felt good about the victory, he simply shook his head. "There is no glory in war," he said. "Only survival. We survived. They did not. That is all." Dr. Hana began working with the new Vortan government immediately. She helped them understand what had gone wrong and how to build a better future. It was slow, painful work. Trust had to be rebuilt. Wounds had to heal. But gradually, the two species began to find common ground. High Strategist Cora, released from human custody, became an advisor to the new government. She wrote a book about the war called The Warning We Ignored. It became required reading in Vortan schools. In it, she detailed every mistake Vex had made and every opportunity for peace that had been missed. The book ended with a simple plea. Learn from our mistake. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone warns you of the consequences of your actions, listen. Pride is not worth the cost we paid. The war was over. The Vortan hegemony was broken. And across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. They saw what happened when you ignored humanity's warnings. They saw what happened when you mistook restraint for weakness, and they decided to choose wisdom over pride. But for humanity, the victory felt hollow. They had won, but at what cost? How many lives lost? How many dreams destroyed? Admiral Dae-Hyun would carry the weight of those questions until his dying day. 50 years had passed since the war ended. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Vortan hegemony still existed, but it was a different nation now. Smaller, humbler, wiser. They had rebuilt their society on foundations of cooperation instead of conquest. High Strategist Cora, now elderly and respected, taught at the new Vortan Academy. Her students were young officers learning military history. She stood before them, using a holographic display to show images from the war decades ago. "This is the warning Dr. Hana sent to our government," Cora explained, playing the old recording. The students watched the human woman explain in perfect Vorton language exactly what would happen if the hegemony invaded. "She told us everything. She held nothing back. And we did not listen." A young student raised his hand. "Why did they warn us at all? If they knew they would win, why give us the chance to prepare?" Cora smiled sadly. "Because humans understand something we did not. They know that the best victory is the one you do not have to fight for. They gave us that warning hoping we would turn back. They showed us their history hoping we would learn from it. They were trying to save us from ourselves, but Overlord Vex saw their honesty as weakness. He thought any species willing to avoid war must be unable to fight. He learned too late that the most dangerous opponent is the one who knows the cost of violence and chooses it anyway. On Earth, Admiral Dae Hyun had passed away years ago. His funeral was attended by both humans and Vortons. The former enemies stood together, mourning a man who had defeated them but also taught them. At his grave, they erected a simple stone with words he had spoken many times. The warning was a mercy. Dr. Hana had retired from government service but continued her work studying alien psychology. She had written several books about the war, all focused on the same theme. Communication and understanding could prevent conflict. But her most important work was the warning protocol, now official human policy for all first contact situations. Captain Tai Min had struggled after the war. The things he did during those dark months haunted him. He spent years in therapy, working through the trauma of being so efficient at violence. Eventually, he found peace teaching survival and tactics at military schools. His lessons always included the same message. Being good at war does not mean you should seek it. On New Busan, where the first battle had been fought, humans and Vortons built a memorial together. It was a vast wall with the names of everyone who died in the war, from both sides. At the base were words carved in multiple languages. They were warned. They came anyway. We remember them not as enemies, but as victims of leaders who valued pride over wisdom. May their sacrifice teach the galaxy what their leaders refused to learn. Every year on the anniversary of the war's end, both species held ceremonies at the memorial. Former enemies met as friends. They shared stories, mourned their dead, and promised to never forget the lessons learned. But the galaxy had not become entirely peaceful. Humanity continued to expand, and with expansion came contact with new species. Most heeded the warnings. They studied the Vortan War and chose cooperation over conflict. But not all were wise. A species called the Collective had been watching humanity's growth with suspicion. They were old, powerful, and technologically advanced. When human colonies began approaching their territory, the Collective demanded humanity stop expanding or face consequences. The human diplomat, a woman named Ji-Wan, traveled to the Collective homeworld. She was Dr. Hana's successor, trained in the same methods, believing in the same principles. She carried with her complete records of Earth's history and the Vortan War. The Collective leaders received her coldly. They sat in a great hall, dozens of them, all looking down at the single human with disdain. Their spokesman, an ancient being called the Eldest, spoke first. "You are young species," the Eldest said. "You have existed for mere thousands of years. We have shaped this galaxy for millions. You will halt your expansion or we will halt it for you." Ji-Wan bowed respectfully. "I understand your concerns. That is why I came here. Not to threaten, but to explain. We have prepared documents for you. They detail human history, our capabilities, and what happened to the last species that chose conflict over dialogue." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's wars, the trenches of the world wars, the atomic bombs falling on cities, the countless conflicts that marked human history. Then she showed the Vortan War in detail. The warning ignored, the invasion, the systematic destruction of Vortan forces. "We are telling you this because we respect you," Ji-Wan said. "We are showing you our capabilities because we want you to understand the consequences of conflict. You are more advanced than us technologically, but we have been fighting and dying since before we left our planet. If you attack us, you might win eventually, but the cost will be higher than you can imagine. Please do not make us prove it." The Collective leaders discussed among themselves for hours. Ji-Wan waited patiently. She had learned from Dr. Hana that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was give people time to think. Finally, the Eldest spoke again. His tone was different now, thoughtful rather than dismissive. "We have reviewed your materials. We have studied this Vortan War. We note that you gave them detailed warnings which they ignored. You are giving us similar warnings now." "Yes," Ji-won replied. "The Vortans made the mistake of thinking our honesty was weakness. We hope you will be wiser." The eldest was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that would change everything. "Unlike the Vortans, we choose wisdom over pride. Let us speak of cooperation instead of conflict. Perhaps there is much we can learn from each other." Ji-won felt relief wash over her. This time the warning had worked. This time someone had listened. She bowed deeply. "Thank you. You honor both our species with this choice." News of the collective's decision spread quickly through human space. There was celebration, but also quiet acknowledgement that this was how it should be. Violence should be the last resort, not the first response. The warning system worked best when it prevented war, not just prepared for it. But humanity remained vigilant. They knew that somewhere in the vast cosmos, another species would eventually make the same mistake the Vortans did. Another leader would look at human restraint and see weakness. Another military would underestimate the species that had spent millennia perfecting organized violence. When that day came, humanity would be ready. They would give the warning again, clearly and completely. They would offer every chance for peace. And if that warning was ignored, they would do what they had always done: survive. A young officer named Kyung-soo joined the Earth Defense Force 50 years after the Vortan War. During training, his instructor showed him recordings of the conflict. The instructor was a veteran who had served under Admiral Dae-hyun. "Why do we give the warnings?" Kyung-soo asked. "If we know we can win, why tell them what we will do?" The instructor looked at him with old, tired eyes. "Because we are not afraid of fighting. We have proven we can win. The warning exists because we are afraid of what we become when we fight. Every war makes us better at killing and worse at living. So we warn them. We give them every chance to turn back. We show them our history so they can learn from our mistakes. And if they do not listen, then we do what we must, knowing that victory always comes with a price we would rather not pay." Kyung-soo thought about this for a long time. He looked at the memorial wall with its thousands of names. He read High Strategist Korra's book about the warning they ignored. He studied the tactics and strategies that had broken the Vortan military, and he understood. Humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their tactics. It was their knowledge of war's true cost. They fought when they had to, but they never forgot what fighting meant. They won battles, but they mourned the necessity of winning. The galaxy had learned a lesson from the Vortan War. Most species looked at humanity and saw not prey, but partners. They saw not weakness, but wisdom. They understood that the warning was real, and ignoring it meant disaster. But for humanity, the lesson was different. They learned that no matter how many warnings they gave, some would not listen. Pride, arrogance, and overconfidence were universal traits, not limited to any one species. There would always be another Vex, another leader who thought restraint meant inability. So they remained vigilant. They kept their defensive systems ready. They trained their soldiers. They perfected their strategies. Not because they wanted war, but because they knew peace could only be maintained by those willing to defend it. Dr. Hana, in her final years, wrote one last book. It was called The Warning, and it became required reading across dozens of species. In it, she made one simple point. Honesty about capability was not weakness. It was the highest form of strength because it gave others the choice to avoid conflict. She ended the book with words that echoed Admiral Dae-hyun's philosophy. "We show you who we are so you can choose wisely. We tell you what we can do so you understand the cost." The warning is not a threat. It is an act of hope, given in the belief that wisdom can prevail over pride. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. But we will never stop giving the warning because even one species choosing peace instead of war makes all the effort worthwhile.